morning, Dr. Broggi. It's Katie from Indiana, and I'm the gal that was on your Israel trip
Yes,
last year.
Katie,
And
yes.
thank you for that opportunity.
Oh, well, I
And
was
the
so
question
pleased that you
I
went.
have is, recently on the Bible line, you referenced if we had a change in political parties that possibly you would not be able to counsel homosexuals at the church. And I was thinking of going one step farther and dovetailing into that. If that requirement was put into place that you could not counsel a homosexual lifestyle, then would we be required to marry homosexuals? Would you elaborate on that, or we just lose our 501c3? And I'll hang up.
Yeah, these are great questions. One of the issues at hand, and there are a ton of issues in this next election, that if, and again, I think you can't simply go by personality, you have to go by platform, and you have to go by principles upon which people are, presenting themselves. And the Democratic platform, more brazen than ever, says you can kill a baby right up until the day before it's born. And, of course, we had one governor who said after the baby's born, if the doctor and the mother wants to slaughter the live baby, they can do that. So there's a lot of huge moral implications that are up for grabs. And, of course, there's an act called the Equality Act, and I would encourage people to go online and maybe read about the Equality Act, because it's a bill that would have gigantic ramifications on Christians and just people in general. And one of the things that it says that you cannot do is you cannot offer what's called reparation counseling, where people are encouraged to change their actions. And so if someone is introduced to Jesus Christ in faith and you're beginning to help that new believer to leave the homosexual, transgender, whatever it is that he's into lifestyle, and to change and to begin asking God to bring healing and to bring about a heterosexual orientation, it's called reparative counseling. They would say that is against the law. Now, what would be the ramifications? This would be easily, of course, expressed in secular realms, whether it's in the military or in public schools, the government school system, and so on. But it would have huge ramifications for Christians. Now, obviously, we have First Amendment rights that protect religious freedom, and assuming that the Constitution is still in play, and one of the major issues is court packing. If we have indeed a Democratic Senate and a House and President where you can change the number of justices to 13, or I think Roosevelt wanted to do 15, and that were to happen, you can put all liberals, and by liberals I mean just stark, unbelieving, godless people, which is reflective of the Democratic platform. It's a godless party, so let's not mince words here. It's a godless party, and their policies are godless. And if you've not read the 91-page, platform, and you vote Democratic, then you're really voting in ignorance. And I'm not saying that all the Republicans are righteous people, but you have to look at principle more than personality. I don't know whether Donald J. Trump, our president, is born again. I don't know that. He could be. Some think he's a baby Christian, but I don't know. But I do know that he wants to protect human life, that some of the things that he's done for African American people has been huge and great and positive. So people who say he's a racist, when on 23 occasions he's denounced, people like the Klan and David Duke and others. I don't believe that. He's been pro-Israel, and on and on and on we could go with his policies. All I can look at is policies. But I think the ramifications, Katie, would be that churches would lose their 501c3 status. But if the court is packed, where you have all these liberals, and you can basically, what's gonna happen is that third balancing form of government within our three branches is going to be lost, and it's going to be controlled for a long, long time by godless people who are going to put their godless principles into the court system, where they're going to be, in essence, performed and made a part of law. So these are very, very serious issues and huge ramifications on, the Constitution itself. And let's face it, the socialists in our nation, they don't like the Constitution of the United States. Listen, the liberals who are running our colleges and universities don't like it. In South Carolina, every institution of higher learning is mandated by law to teach the Constitution of the United States, the Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers, which serve somewhat as a commentary on the other two, in terms of how the founders understood the Constitution. With that said, there's only 4 schools now that are doing it, and that's largely due to pressure that has been put upon them. But you've got major universities like the University of South Carolina, Clemson, and they have mocked and laughed at it. They said, well, we honor the law and that we pass out the Constitution on Constitution days. That's like saying, well, the way we teach chemistry is we pass out, the periodic table once a year. And that's not what the law says. The law has mandated 6 hours of teaching, but they can have a course on Lady Gaga. They can have a course on tailgating and all kinds of wicked and profane things that are taught that most people are blind to, and they have no idea what these students are actually being indoctrinated to. But here are people who don't love our country. And look, I think at the best right now, the very best we can do, assuming we have some people who are elected into office. And, I think of a guy like Senator Graham, and he's up for grabs. And, the guy who's running against him for Senate, he's godless. He's a godless pagan. Let's not mince word. It has nothing to do with the fact that he's black. He's a godless pagan. Tim Scott, Senator Tim Scott, whom one of my sons spent a year working for, he's a godly man who loves Christ and the things of Christ. So this is not a racial thing. We're talking about principles and lifestyle and things that people are teaching and espousing. But I think what is going to happen is, at the least we can do is maybe we can stay off some of these things for another 4 years. But unless there's some kind of a revival in America, the American way of life as we know it will be lost, because it only functions on a Judeo-Christian ethic. It only functions on a Judeo-Christian ethic. And if you survey students 18 to 25, the way they think about life is so anti-God and godless. These are the leaders. These are the people who are going to be making the decisions 15, 20 years from now. And if that's what we have, America will be fundamentally a different place in which to live. So these are important days, and God's in his throne. Look, if, after the election, we have a President Biden, God's still on his throne. He's not going to be, call an emergency meeting of the Trinity. We're in trouble here. He knows what he's about. But that doesn't dismiss my responsibility as a Christian to lay in the dust any kind of certain views that I've held and not to vote on principle. And that's part of being salt and light. Good question, Katie. Yeah. And I'm so thrilled. We had her and her husband and Dave with us in Israel, and it was a pleasure getting to know them.
Well, the second part of her question was, if you continue to counsel and if you're then expected to perform marriages for homosexuals, will the church, and you refuse to do that, will the church lose its 501c3 status? 501c3
I suspect
status?
so. Because,
but worse than that, you could actually be arrested.
It could come to that. And people say, well, that will never happen. But see, think about this for a moment. See, we've got all these so-called churches and now even so-called evangelicals who are kowtowing to this worldview. We have 2 churches in our town that do gay marriages. Yeah, they do gay marriages. What kind of a church is that? It's not a church. It's apostate. It's a false message. And now we've got, people who have taken this intermediate step. Tim Keller, who's supposedly a Christian apologist, who said that same-sex attraction is just fine as long as you don't act on it. You know, that's a wicked point of view. No, that needs to be brought under the sanctifying power of the Holy Spirit if you're born again. And if someone says, well, I'm born again, but I'm just attracted to people of the same sex, and it's okay for me to embrace these feelings, that's someone who has not been regenerated by the Spirit. So what I'm saying is the biblical worldview is going to become a minority unless there's a revival. And the implications and ramifications initially might be, yeah, okay, you can't have your nonprofit status, but, we've got a pastor in Sweden who's in jail because he refuses to marry gay people. You say that could never happen in America. Anything could happen in America if we reject God, and the ramifications are gigantic.
Dr. Carl Broggi answers your questions about the Bible and living the Christian life Tuesday mornings at 11 on The Light 88.7 FM and online around the world at wagp.net.